Council work session for February 4th, 2019 is now in order. Roll call, please, Sue. Are we all here?
Sorry, the system didn't start.
Oh. You need me to back it up?
No.
Okay.
This is the roll call for February 4th, 2019 work session. Councilor Findley? Here. Mayor Rogers?
Here.
Councilor Curtis Gemeroy?
Here.
Councilor Yarnell Holloman?
Here.
Councilor Johnson?
Here.
And Councilor Bacon and Councilor Corey have excused absences.
Wow. All right, next, review of the council agenda and meeting. Do we, anything that you want off of the consent agenda, folks? Anything you'd like to know more about? Hearing none. All right, let's move along. Council business items. If we could start first with the committee assignments. I'm going to spring this all on you. You've seen it, and I'll come right clean with it. Anybody want to get off a committee for, in order for Elizabeth and or Stephanie to pick one up? Patrick?
I'd be more than willing to
Yes, sir.
I'd be more than willing to allow one of our newer counselors to be on the visioning committee if they wanted to do that.
Okay. Anybody, do we have a taker for visioning? Visioning,
I would be happy to take that.
okay. Sounds good to me. Now, do we need this then to be nominated at some point in a later date, or can we do it this way? Tonight? Okay. Stephanie to visioning. Anyone else?
Yeah.
Yep.
Well, I just didn't see on there the TLT committee that I was recently put on.
I think the TLT committee is coming to an end, I believe.
It's over.
Yeah, it's done.
Okay.
Okay, so that one's off. What about the Cultural District Executive Board? Do you want to stay on that? Okay, we've got head shaking going on.
I would be happy to do that. I don't want to take it from you, but if you feel like you need some relief from all your things, I
haven't really done anything yet, but you can totally take that if you want.
And we got Stephanie again for the Cultural District. Very good. I see here we have NUMAC, right, which I actually served on for a number of years and never met, actually. So anybody want that one? That's very easy. You can get credit for doing nothing, actually. It's great. I've also, yeah, no takers, okay.
Mayor Rogers,
Yes.
just to let you know, I've been talking with Carrie Hinton at the Yamhill County,
Yep.
and they don't currently have anyone appointed to NUMAC either. It has not met in over a decade. So there isn't any rush.
Oh, well, we
get
can
someone
certainly
appointed.
table that one for the next decade. You got that. Patrick's got it. All right. I also see here we've got something called the Yamhill County Water Task Force that Councilor McKinney had been on. Does anyone know what that might be? Yep.
It's a task force on water.
Thanks, Sue.
So, I think on some of your updates in the last one, you saw that the county and particularly Commissioner Sterrett is really interested in the conversations about a couple things. One is basically a water line that runs between Newberg and McMinnville.
Okay.
Emergency and that. The other conversation includes some bigger ones, including I think he's told us all before that McMinnville has tremendous water resources and their rates are low. And they have watershed, and they would like to talk about just sometime in the future, maybe a water authority. What would that mean? It can mean a lot of things, but basically it could be consolidation, just like there's a TVF&R for fire. There's a similar, a lot of us are experienced with clean water services, so that's part. It's actually it's a real active group right now in discussions. And with Dundee right now, what we're telling them is that even though you don't need our water system, we'd like to get an emergency tie to them.
Patrick, were you ringing? Oh.
I was accidentally
yes.
ringing.
Yes.
It was an accident.
Oh.
But I know I do want to
thought you were
talk.
signing up.
I do want to talk, but I wasn't trying to ring it while he was speaking.
Okay.
No, I would love to sign up for the Water Task Force if that's possible.
Yep, sounds good to me. Do we need somebody for the Affordable Housing Trust Fund Commission? Doug?
Doug Rux. No, we don't need, we have a full 5-member, but we do have 3 slots that are open for non-voting members based upon the adopted resolution.
Okay.
So if there's a council member who wants to be a non-voting member, they can do that.
Any, daytime, 1:30 to 2:30 during the day. No for Patrick. Anybody? Elise?
I would do that one.
Elise, okay. All right, and then what about Newberg 2030, Doug? When, are we gonna need people for that?
That's another one where we have a full committee, but we do not, at this point in time, have a council liaison
Okay.
representative for that. We don't have we're revising the whole meeting schedule.
Okay,
When does that one meet?
Pardon?
When does that one meet?
Typically, we meet in the afternoons.
yeah?
I can do that one, yeah.
Okay, all right, and Elizabeth, okay. Did you get those, Sue?
I didn't get the last one, I'm sorry.
Okay, Elizabeth to Newberg 2030.
Newberg 2030.
Yep.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, anybody else, anything else? The other thing, just to mention, I think Denise said she's on Noon Rotary, Joe's with Kiwanis. What about early birds? Do we have any early birds? I see some early birds in the house, but anybody? Okay, so that's one to think about. Are there any others that I missed on here on this list of stuff you all are doing? No? Okay, cool. All right. All right, I think that's it for the moment until we get an early bird. So, okay. Next, all right. Anything else on that? Committee assignments? All right, moving along. How's about on February 19th, 2 weeks from today, we're going to try to do council priorities. The thought is to start with what we've got, the 13, and then go from there, get updates from staff, et cetera. Can we try to do it earlier than 6 o'clock? Yeah? Can we start at, I'll throw out 5. Can we start at 5? Yes? Yes? Is that okay? Joe? Yeah? Okay. So we'll do that. We'll start at 5 o'clock on the 19th for council priorities. All right. Anything else with council business? No? All right. Moving along. Transient lodging tax workshop. Cue Doug.
Thank you. Doug Rux, Community Development Director. So, sorry this wasn't out in your packet. I actually put it together over the weekend. The mayor and I had a discussion about having a work session just for many of you to kind of get you up to speed of what's happened over the course of the last 3 years, and then bring you kind of current where we're at, given the discussions you've had in December and in January, and then we'll talk about next steps moving forward. So, in a land far, far away, in a time long, long ago, the city adopted a transient room tax, which then became the transient lodging tax. So when we were putting together the economic development strategy back in 2015, one of the things that was identified was tourism and hospitality as one of the pillars of those 4 pillars of that economic development strategy. So with that, there were conversations with the council. The city manager pro tem at the time, Steve Rhodes, put together an advisory group to the city manager. And through that process, that advisory group and staff ended up going out for solicitation, did interviews, and hired Outlook to prepare a tourism strategy for the city. That strategy was ultimately approved back in June of 2016 by City Council by resolution number 3307. There were 3 focus areas to that tourism strategy. One was organizational development, destination development, and then destination marketing. So that set the stage for a series of conversations in the fall of 2016 with council, where we brought forward initially 3 potential models. Those models were hire an outside organization, engage the chamber in a tourism beyond what they were doing under their current contract, or hire city staff. Through those discussions, a 4th one came up, and that was use existing city staff. Council held those discussions. They came back in October, and they chose to use the existing city staff model. When they were looking at that point in time, the outside organization, the chamber, and the hiring a city staff was the most expensive proposition. The second probably was an outside organization, and then the chamber, kind of in that order. Council, subsequently, when they made their decision in October of 2016, they came back in December of 2016, and they appointed the Transient Lodging Tax Ad Hoc Committee. So that set the stage for activities that have taken place over the course of the last year, 2 years. So the TLT actually held their first meeting in January of 2017. In the material that was presented to council, there was a list of things that the TLT committee would do. So first of all, it said that they would operate no less than 2 years and no more than 4 years. It would be 13 members, and there are 13 members that got appointed to that, met the broad representation in the subsets that are listed in the slides there. So we did have somebody from the Airbnb and VRBO, so that was Megan Carta, city council member, an at-large citizen. Ex Officio members were the mayor and the city manager. And staff came out of the community development department, and that was myself. Their role was to solicit tourism, related facility projects, and review proposals and recommendations to the city council. So the council ultimately had the decision-making authority, and this was in regards to grants. So you may remember, some of you, we had a small grant program that was up to $20,000 a year, and then we had a destination development / marketing program. So the charge for the TLT was to review those grants, and they did, and then make recommendations to the city council, and the city council would then make the decision on the award of funds. They also had the charge over the last 2 years to continue that discussion about a permanent organizational structure for tourism. We also had conversations with the Chehalem Valley Chamber of Commerce on services for FAMs and marketing and destination in their contract for the visitor center. They did already have some marketing responsibilities as part of that contract. And then the last one on this slide was allocate funds to do an assessment on marketing material. And the TLT committee, through their discussions, selected that they identified they had enough brain power that was sitting around the table that they could take this task on and not hire an outside consultant to assist with that. So that's what the top bullet indicates. The grant programs, I'll get into that in a little more detail, and they continue again to talk about the organizational structure, a permanent organizational structure. So in the grants, and I put this material in because the question constantly comes up, what have we done in the past? So in 16-17, we did small grants for the Camellia Society for $20,000, the Cultural Center for the Camellia Festival for $65.50, Hoover Minthorn for $1,400 for some signs, Old Fashioned Festival, that was actually for marketing for the festival, $3,500, and YCAP for their fire benefit. What was not approved at that time was Tunes on Tuesday was looking for a $10,000 grant, and that was focused on fencing for the event. In 2017-18, the committee reviewed and made recommendations to the council. The council ended up awarding the Hoover Boyhood program at the Cultural Center for $2,500, Anvil Academy for their Grand Prix of $25,000, Truffle Festival for $7,000, and the Cultural Center for the Camellia Festival for $8,000. Important to note here, Anvil Academy did not exercise their grant. The program came and went. It was aligned with the Old Fashioned Festival, and that's come and gone. We're waiting for an email to say, yes, we're not going to take the grant because their program's already come and gone. What was not approved, Anvil had a second proposal for some promotion at the Portland IndyCar race for $10,000. In the large grant, which we called the Destination Development Marketing Grant, the committee reviewed and recommended the Downtown Wineries Association for $20,000. That was for some media work, and that's in process. The Cultural Center for the Culinary Enrichment Center, that's the culinary kitchen component of $250,000. They have a grant contract. We're trying to work through the dates to put in that contract. And then Wolves and Peoples for the Steins to Vines Trail for $30,000. That one, we do not have a contract generated yet. They need to go back to Yamhill County because they've got a land use process that they have to go through to connect two properties by that trail. So that's the grants that were approved. Not approved was Hoover Minthorn House. They were looking for some roof, gutters, and electrical for $30,000. Parks and Rec was looking for lighting up the sports complex at Darnell Wright, and the city for the cultural district wayfinding of $73,500. So the ask was larger than the funds were available at that time. So in August of this year, City Council and the TLT held a work session on the organizational structure. And what was presented is have an outside organization called Visit Newberg. On December 17th, staff brought forward, based upon discussions with the TLT committee, an agreement between the city, a draft agreement between the city and Visit Newberg, a recommendation on initial board of directors for Visit Newberg, and Councilor Yarnell Holloman was identified as the council member to be on the Visit Newberg at that time as a non-voting member. And then we had an information packet. What ended up was the agreement and the info item got tabled. The council did approve recommendations to Visit Newberg for the initial board of directors. In December of 2018, Visit Newberg filed its articles of incorporation with the state. On January 22nd, council tabled the agreement again to May 20th and directed the TLT committee to come back with some startup costs for Visit Newberg. On January 30th of 2019, Visit Newberg held their organizational meeting, and representatives from Visit Newberg are here this evening, as well as their legal counsel. On January 31st, an email went out to the TLT committee and to the marketing subcommittee that their functions had been disbanded. That actually their terms had ended in December of 2018. They had graciously agreed to stay on up to 3 additional months to work through the Visit Newberg proposal. And on December 17th, this ties back to the grants, is that the council awarded $14,000 to the Camellia Festival out of the TLT funds. Three years in history in 10 minutes or less. You can't read this. Things don't always copy well. But the TLT marketing committee met and was discussing the initial startup costs. And based upon those discussions, what you have up there is a rounded total of $150,000. And so that was estimated to be about $10,000 for outside services to go through recruitment for an executive director, $25,000, and this was covering a period of March 1st through June 30th. So I got to make sure we clarify that. The executive director salary was talked about at $25,000, so we took $75,000 for a year, broke that down into 4 months. That's how $25,000 came up. For the benefits, again, we took the similar model, numbers that had been put together in the fall of 2018. For benefits, broke that down to a 4-month period. Chamber of Commerce staff support, that $8,000, again, that was conversations that were held back in the fall of 2018. Visit Newberg, having negotiations with the chamber to utilize office space and staff support space to do that. And so you can see this office space lease is about $8,000, and then there's some ancillary costs, and so there's costs probably maybe for desks and chairs that will need to be negotiated. Well, Visit Newberg will need to dive deeper into that. We talked about laptops, cell phones, cell service, travel and expenses over that 4-month period, about $2,500. There's bank services, organization memberships. Often memberships, when you apply for a membership, it's for a year period, so we had to factor that into it. Entertainment, dues and subscriptions and contingency was $10,000. So when you add that up, it came roughly to $150,000. Based on conversations I've had with Visit Newberg, they've identified some adjustments and modifications to these numbers, and they're here tonight, and they can speak to that. But where they're at now is at about $275,000, maybe a little less than that. One of the things is that the city engaged Mr. Bridges to help establish Visit Newberg. And so from the TLT funds, we've been paying for those legal expenses. The city attorney and I have talked, and in some email communications back to Mr. Bridges, is that that obligation, we believe, continues through getting their 1024 form for a 501c6 process. So there's legal services and outside services to do that. And we can parse that down a little bit more, but that way you can at least get the context. And so that's why that 275 might be a little bit lower, because we might use existing funds that we already have. All of this comes out of the TLT pot. So what are the next steps in the world of tourism? So on February 19th, council is going to review the startup costs. The city's going to inform the chamber to use its existing funds. So we have a $145,000 contract with the chamber to do the visitor center and to do marketing. When we started down this path with Visit Newberg in real earnest in the summer into the fall, we asked the chamber, don't spend the marketing money, so that money could come back and would end up going to Visit Newberg. With the discussions that have occurred, what we've now lost is that opportunity, and the chamber is being approached about marketing opportunities. And so we want to release that $40,000 to let them continue to do marketing activities until Visit Newberg, we get the funding allocation done, they get the startup money, and then I'll get to the piece where they have to come back with some additional paperwork. Visit Newberg will need to obtain its 501c6 status, and I mentioned that with their legal counsel and assistance outside to do that process. As has been proposed, Visit Newberg would have negotiations on office space, where they would be located. There's going to need to be negotiations between the city and Visit Newberg on the agreement that was already brought forward to you back in December and then tabled again on January 22nd. So that's where we get to the May of 2020 is we're anticipating coming back with an agreement, a Visit Newberg business plan and budget. That date may shift. It may have to shift into June. Part of this is predicated on how long will it take Visit Newberg to do their recruitment, hire, and get an executive director on board, and then we need to give that executive director enough time to look at the agreement, have discussions with their board to put together a budget and a business plan. Staff will need to continue to administer the outstanding grants that have already been awarded. Those are the Destination Development and Marketing grants. The City Council is going to have to review a modification to the chamber contract. We've already started those discussions again in the fall about what those numbers may be. So again, that may be a May, June of 2019 timeline when that comes back. And then in the future, thinking past June 30th, there would be quarterly reports from Visit Newberg that would come back to the City Council. There would be an annual business plan that would have to be prepared and a budget that would come back to the City Council for approval as well.
I have a question. All right, so, so we'll get new numbers, I assume, for the startup budget before the 19th of February. Right now, you've got them.
Well,
Okay, cool, all right. So
I
we can
would
get 'em
I'd say
tonight.
the staff report has been submitted.
Okay.
Into the process, into the queue for the 19th. Based upon the discussion tonight, though nobody's making a decision, if there's some direction you want me to go, I can go in and modify that staff report and that spreadsheet to reflect the discussions this evening.
Okay, and we can hear hopefully from the folks from.
Yes.
Yeah, okay, from Visit Newberg. And then one other question, will grant money continue to be a part of this in terms of, for activities, Camellia Festival and this kind of thing, or how will that be
No.
handled? No, okay,
The premise is that the TLT funds would be collected by the city. The city keeps 65% of the TLT funds, which goes to the general fund. 35%, 35.01, Matt, 35.1, to be specific, would go to the TLT program.
okay.